I'm Brian Grossman. I'm the editor-in-chief at The Independent and the Colorado Springs Business Journal, and our military papers as well. And this is Amy.
Sir. Hi, Amy.
Hi, I am Amy Gillentine. I'm the publisher and executive editor of the newspaper group here. And
okay.
Glenn is joining us now. He was running a few minutes late. He's the third member of our editorial board who will be on this call.
Hey, Glenn. Say hey.
Hey, Glenn.
So Glenn is the editor of the Southeast Express. We are 3/5 of the editorial board for the publishing house. So I'm going to go ahead and moderate this one, Glenn. Todd, you want to introduce yourself and give us a little background?
Sure. Todd Watkins. I live in Peyton, Colorado. I'm running for El Paso County Sheriff. I grew up in Arizona. My father was a City of Phoenix police officer. Father-in-law was a state trooper in Arizona. Served in the Army did a 4-year enlistment back during the end of the Cold War. Did my whole time in Germany. It started off as West Germany when I got there, and it was just all one great big Germany when I left. Served in the Border Patrol for 24 years. I retired on May 31st of last year. And worked on the southern border, northern border, a couple of tours through our national headquarters in Washington, D.C. Retired as an assistant chief out of our national headquarters as an emergency manager for U.S. Border Patrol. Hold a bachelor's in English and a master's degree in emergency management and homeland security. Both are from Arizona State University. Married, 3 kids. The youngest is 20 and a student at UCCS. The middle is active duty soldier out in Kansas at Fort Riley. And our oldest son is a deputy sheriff up in Douglas County, Colorado.
Okay. I heard lots of family law enforcement connections. What was your connection to law enforcement? Do you have a law enforcement background?
U.S. Border Patrol, 24 years.
Okay, sorry, yeah. I heard lots of positions there. So talk about your vision for the sheriff's office.
So my vision for the sheriff's office here is, well, number one, to restore morale. The morale is absolutely in the tanks. Those current and recently separated members of the sheriff's office all have cited unanimously that poor leadership and practices of cronyism, nepotism abound, and has deteriorated their trust and faith in the command staff and current leadership. They don't describe them as leaders. They say generally that there's a lot of managers, but not a lot of leaders at the El Paso Sheriff's Office. So my first goal is to eliminate those practices that deteriorate morale and begin to grow the ranks back to its authorized complement. It's, depending on who you talk to, it's anywhere from 80 to 100 to 120 short of where it should be. So as the county has grown in area and in population, the sheriff's office has actually declined in personnel. So it does not provide a good, efficient ability to cover the area that the county has consumed. Also, there is I think the paradigm of law enforcement needs to change back to the notion of being peacekeepers, officers of the peace, and to commit ourselves to protecting the rights of the citizens of this county, and not to rote or blind allegiance to enforcing statute because of for the mere fact that statutes exist. So I endeavor to conduct the role of policing the county to more of a constitutional basis. In other words, everything that we do will have a grounding in the founding documents of the country, and that is to protect the rights of the citizens.
So might as well segue there. One of your opponents mentioned that his opponents followed sort of the constitutional sheriff way of law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And he explained it. What's your interpretation of that? And can you give an example of what that might look like?
It's exactly what I just said. That if we look at the founding documents, particularly the articles of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause states that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It does not state that statute is the supreme law of the land. In fact, it indicates that all laws must be in pursuance thereof, meaning they must comport and have a founding in the notion of the Constitution. So I know that there have been others in the race to have claimed that that constitutional anything is a gimmick. I push back strenuously that it is a gimmick. Anybody who is in any role in government, from the president to a dog keeper, swears an oath to the U.S. Constitution to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution. That is our job. The role of government is to protect the rights of citizens. That's what we do. That's what anybody in government must do. It's most visible and most tangible, I think, with when you get into the roles of police. Sheriff is elected. He's the only law enforcement officer who's elected. He's accountable to and responsible to the people who elected him. He's not subordinate to, he's not employed by or held subservient, subordinate to any other official in government. He's an elected official. He answers to the people. His job is to protect the rights of the citizens that elected him.
So let me, I guess, rephrase.
So we get how it applies. The real power in the office, it comes from not so much what the sheriff will do, what actions he would take, in so much as it is in the actions that he would not take by nullifying rules, mandates, orders, and even statutes that violate citizens' rights by non-enforcement. It's nullification.
Okay, can I ask, just Brian, is there a state statute that you would not enforce then? Can you name some that you would not, that you would in essence nullify?
So more readily, I go to those regulations, orders that come from the executive branch, the administrative force, if you will. So we're not compelled to obey so much regulations or orders that come from branches of the executive branch, in that the legislative power of the government comes from the legislature. So citizens cannot be bound except for actions of the legislature, and really nothing else. So the mask mandates, vaccine mandates, none of that follows from the Constitution, and it is really the duty of government officials to not enforce that. State statutes, red flag, ERPO, totally unconstitutional, violates the 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 14th Amendments.
So red flag, specifically the mask mandates, specifically, those would be two things that you would choose not to enforce if you were sheriff. Yeah, those
are some recent examples. Yep.
Okay. So what place does statute have, and how do you pick and choose? This is the, and I know you would say the Constitution, which some would say is open to some interpretation. So whose interpretation gets to pick when statutes are in violation?
The founders. Okay. We look back at the Federalist Papers. It's called the Madison two-step process. Is it a power that is specified, enumerated to the government, or is it a subsidiary of that could be construed. Necessary and proper is been broadly used to really expand the scope of government. Having worked in the federal government, I can tell you that it's far too large.
Okay. Let's move on. If you could assess the relationship, you talked about the internal relationship with the sheriff's office. If you could assess the office's relationship with the public right now, what sort of grade would you give it and why?
I think it's a good, maybe a B.
Okay.
I've seen other places, having been, around the country, I've seen other places where the public opinion and the relationship between the people and those who perform the police services is definitely worse than it is here. So in El Paso County, not accounting for, say, the city of Colorado Springs, which has its own police department, but out in the unincorporated parts of the county, the people seem relatively happy with the sheriff's office. Some of the exceptions, maybe why it doesn't score as highly as it could or should, have to do a lot with the manpower and response times. They're extended. At any given time, there's maybe 7 cars on the road, maybe.
You had mentioned morale and sort of cronyism and that kind of thing. There's also a staff shortage with the sheriff's office. Do you think
Yes.
Are they related? Is that the main reason? Are there other reasons for the staff shortage, and what would you do about those?
I think I mentioned this already, that those that I've spoken to, especially what's significant, are the ones who have left recently. The vast majority left to go work for other departments. So it's not that they wanted out of law enforcement, it's that they wanted out of the sheriff's office, because they describe a toxic environment with management and leadership. The surest way to do this is to relieve those people in leadership positions who are toxic, who are not performing the job that they as well as they should, and start to implement processes for promoting that are based on merit and capability, and not on favor, friendship, prior relationships. So yeah, I'm an outsider. I don't owe any allegiances to anybody inside that department. I don't owe any favors, and nobody can really influence me in that way.
The jail has experienced 11 deaths since 2020. Do you have any sort of insight or remedy for that?
So I know that 11 since 2020, and I believe it's 7 in the last year. And there have really been no statements or what's the word I'm looking for? No reports on what happened or why it happened. That's unacceptable. It sounds like they're very understaffed, and probably a lack of discipline in the jail personnel, not doing their jobs, not doing their walks. I know one. I'm told, I don't know for certain, was a suicide. That probably could have been prevented had people been doing their actual job. So there's not a lot of oversight. There's not a lot of supervision there. That's the story that I'm getting.
Okay. We've reported on it, so I know they've been open about, and that Sheriff Elder has spoken publicly about it. And yeah, several have been suicide. So, which, mental health in general, do you have anything to say about how you would approach that with incarcerated individuals, since that so many have been suicide? There have been health issues too, but a lot have been suicide.
Yes, well, mental health in general should not be the role of law enforcement. No one benefits by taking someone who's having a mental health episode and putting him in a jail. I mean, a detentive situation. We need to look for other solutions for this. We need to look for other remedies. It's a community problem, needs a community solution. I don't want to put law enforcement into environments and into roles that don't really serve the people, the citizens. And by placing law enforcement into into mental health environments and mental health situations. I mean, really, we're going to criminalize this. Don't apply law enforcement solutions where you don't need a law enforcement solution. They have they call it BHCON, BHCON, their behavioral health unit. I like that idea. I like partnering, mental health professionals with, with deputies, with officers who are responding to scenes where it's likely to be a mental health situation, but it needs to be treated as a mental health situation. And we need to start working to get law enforcement out of that role. It overburdens law enforcement. For one thing, if you got 7 cars on the road, that you don't have a lot of bandwidth for this. But these are health issues. I would like to get government as out of the role of healthcare, any type of healthcare, as much as possible. It's not an overnight. It's going to take time to do this. And there are structures and programs that need to be stood up in their place. And I think it needs to come from the community and not the government.
So combining sort of a healthcare element with law enforcement to help the law enforcement side and ease their burden. You agree with that? Are there any other policies that are in place right now that you think work well? And let's start with that.
That's the only one that I'm really aware of. It's a good start. It's a good program, and I think it like I said, it needs to be developed, even so far as to really take law enforcement out of it and hand it over to healthcare professionals to address those issues properly.
So you're saying not in conjunction with law enforcement?
At some point, you'd like to see it not in conjunction with law enforcement. Okay. Obviously, if there is a dangerous criminal situation occurring, we're involved. But I think too often the go-to solution is to arrest the person and put them in a detention center. And jails are not equipped for that. It doesn't benefit anybody.
Okay. Response times also slow, and a lot of this again goes back to staffing, which we've talked about. Are there other solutions to slow response times?
Sure. So we could those personnel who live out in the county take home cars, and you start your shift from your driveway instead of driving downtown for your roll call or muster and then going back out into the county. You cut the transit time down. I've dealt with that a whole bunch in the Border Patrol. I've worked at stations where it took you 2 hours to get to your assigned area. And that's in a couple places, and it's counterproductive. And out here it costs response times. But you need to grow the patrol division. I think I suspect, I believe that I can find other, pull personnel from other assignments into patrol, prioritize what our operation should be. And I think patrol should probably be a little bit higher on the continuum than some of the inside jobs. But also, if you have the take-home vehicles and storefront.
Sorry, what was
that? We used to call them storefront locations. So say, a substation.
Yeah. Okay.
In some of the more rural areas, it put some. We could partner with some of the fire protective services for some office space.
Okay.
So you could forward deploy people essentially.
So current model, when there's use of force or officer involved shootings, CSPD investigates, Paso County Sheriff's Office, so Paso County Sheriff's investigates, Colorado Springs Police Department. Do you think that is too cozy of a relationship? Do you think it's just right? Your opinion on that?
I don't know how else you separate it aside from bringing an agency from, say, a completely other location. There's an issue of timeliness here. When you have a crime scene, you need to secure it and start to investigate it. So just based on distance, I don't know how you would how you would accommodate a better scenario. If you bring in, say, state investigators from some other place, how do you get that in a timely manner? Could be, I understand the misgivings, but it's something that I've grown accustomed to in the in my federal experience. If we had a use of force incident, the most readily available would be a shooting. We were investigated by, I would say, 3 different entities. There was our own internal investigation. There would be the DOJ, handled all use of force incidents like that. So the FBI would investigate it. And we'd also have the local, whether it was county or city or state, depending where we were, would conduct an investigation also. So I don't have a problem with another agency investigating that. In fact, I would be inclined to conduct my own internal also. Mm-hmm. And if the state wants to look at it, then bring the state into it and let them investigate it also, or even audit it.
Yeah, and I think the idea would be either the state or even, a group made up of other law enforcement agencies, or an agency that's outside of the county.
Yeah, but you understand, in order to respond, sure, you have to somebody has to be right there, right. And you would rather
thing in play.
Well, yeah, because the integrity of the crime scene needs to be upheld, and you want to do that quickly so that there's not an image of, well, there was a lot of time that elapsed. What happened during that? Was the integrity of that scene upheld, or was it monkeyed with?
Well, and forgive me, I'm not an expert in law enforcement, but I think the initial investigation is done by whoever has jurisdiction. We're talking about the follow-up to that. If there were investigating whether or not it was a justified shooting or a justified use of force.
Yeah, so a secondary, an audit type of investigation.
Right. So that's I'm reliant on distance and right.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that.
With an outside agency being involved.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. It removes any well, it should remove a great deal of the impression of some sort of favoritism.
Right, which is what I'm getting at.
Objectivity is important, and so is transparency.
Okay. What's a mistake you've made, and how did you go about rectifying
it? Wow. So many to choose from, right?
Usually,
yeah. I'm let's see. I know I backed into a low-hanging branch with a patrol vehicle, and it broke the rear window, and I called, notified immediately what we had done. I mean, obviously it was my fault. You admit it. You cut your memo that says I didn't see it, I broke it, I accept responsibility for it. I don't have any mistakes that are terribly egregious, that are really bad. I'm lucky in that regards. I've lost equipment before in the field, and as soon as you notice that it's gone, you report that it's gone. It was my responsibility to safeguard it. I lost it. It got broken. You admit it. You take your lumps and move on.
All right. I'm gonna see if anybody else has some questions, and then we'll let you sort of close up here. Amy, you got anything?
I actually have a couple. How do you view, what is your leadership style? How do you view the responsibilities and duties of leadership?
So I look at leadership is, I've been to a few, as you promote up, you kind of get a little bit of training and some academic background or, influence into it. And there are as many different definitions of leadership as there are people who have served in those roles. So I can never settle on one. So I tend to put leadership into two different branches. There's transactional and transformational. Transactional leadership is more of a hands-on dictatorial, think drill sergeant, instructor, initial entry, and there's a time and a place for that, and that's in those types of environments. So if we consider that I'm not in the role of a drill instructor, or handling with trainees where you dictate every step, and then there's either good consequences or bad consequences for based on performance. In exigent circumstances, that has a place, that has a role. You go here, you go do that, step by step, hands on. As in the higher levels of leadership, I think it's more transformational, that you let your personnel who are professionals, that's why you hire them and train them the way that you do, and you give them guidance, direction, a vision, and objectives, and let your people guide themselves and do the job. You provide left and right margins to stay between, but really just let people go with your vision, clear instructions, and let them guide the organization. And I've found that works very well, and I've seen some of my mentors handled their leadership roles that way, so I learned from that. But I don't know that there's one style. You have to adapt to the situation, especially in something where you are responding to incidents. And that transformational role can very quickly become transactional if the circumstances are present for it, especially in, say, something where the sheriff has to get involved with, say, more of a disaster circumstances, where you would have to step in and say, do this, do that, call this person, tell that unit to go here, to go there. But absent those, I think it's really a vision and direction of the agency, and set your standards, and garner the support to achieve those.
Okay. And so you were on the border patrol. What lessons have you learned there that you would apply to the sheriff's position?
Well, morale. Morale is the most important thing. The people who work for you are the most important element of getting your job done. The mission that we have as either police or down on the border was to protect the country, to protect the citizens. So the people that you employ have to see it that way, and they have to be given the latitude and the ability to do the job. I've never met anybody who came into this vocation, this career field, who was there just to get a paycheck. They felt a calling, they felt a sense of duty, and that needs to be protected by the leadership. Morale is always the responsibility of the leader. Period. End of sentence. You can't blame the men and women that work for you for poor morale. It's the leader's responsibility. So that needs to be foremost in that chief executive's mind, that the morale, it will make or break the ability of your unit, your organization, your department, your agency to perform.
Okay, that's all I had. Glenn, did you have anything?
Yeah, what makes you the most preferred candidate over everyone else in the field currently?
Well, I'd like to start off with, I don't owe anything to anybody in the government here in this county right now. I don't owe any political favors to anybody. I haven't made any promises to anybody. I have a much broader scope of experience from having worked all around this country for the federal government at national command staff levels, and have seen I've seen government at varying degrees, and I think I have a better understanding of how that's supposed to apply, that interface with the citizenry, with the people. I've seen a lot of things work. I've seen a lot of things not work. At the federal level, we are very much affected by the capriciousness of political winds. The policies of the day, the ideology du jour. I dealt with that from a variety of different administrations. I think I served under, let's see, 5 different administrations, and every one of them was different. So you learn from that how to stay constant to your mission, and how to stay true to what your purpose for being is. And one thing that I learned in hindsight, in retrospect, that your priority, what keeps your compass needle pointing straight, I think, is we are not here for the glory and the fame of the agency or the organization. We're here to serve the people of this county, of this state, of this country, whatever level you're at. But for this office, it's the county. It's not for the glory and the accolades of your agency. Esprit de corps is great. It's important for morale, but you can never lose sight of the fact that we are here to serve the people. We're here to protect the people, period, end of sentence. And that has to guide all of your decisions.
Glenn, did you have anything else? No. Todd, anything else that you'd like to close with?
No, that's it.
That's it. All right. So the Indy will be coming out with its endorsements in June, mid-June, and look out for that. And we appreciate your time.
Sure. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.